For Mr. Kevin Moore. Kevin, are you here? Kevin, welcome. Please join us at the table. Could I remind folk that we have 10 minutes per submission. I have a clock that I will press the start button of when I say you're on, and at 10 minutes that will be it. Please allow some time for questions if you wish. We've had the chance to read your submissions, and we have a number of submissions this afternoon. So, Kevin, welcome. Your time's beginning now.
Good afternoon, Council, and people attending this hearing. First, I'd like to draw the Council's attention to the Community Plan 2009-2019, and item Secure and Healthy. If we look at sub-item SH2, the environmental, physical and mental health of the people in Taranaki is maintained, enhanced, promoted and protected. So this is a legal obligation for this council to do those things. Now, I'd like to just talk a little bit about history. Firstly, there was radium, which was used for glow-in-the-dark watches. There was DDT, which was an insecticide. There was Agent Orange, there was thalidomide, there was asbestos. And what do all of these have in common? In every case, the general public were told they were totally safe, completely harmless, and this was supported by government evidence. Often, of course, the government evidence came from chemical manufacturers who had a vested interest in supplying these various items. All of them have, of course, been determined to be extremely toxic, very bad for health, carcinogenic. The list is actually almost endless. We could include things like food additives, dyestuffs. So we now look at fluoride. And, of course, fluoride is in the same category. This is, yet again, a substance which is highly poisonous and has been promoted as being perfectly safe. Again, by governments and through sources with a vested interest in selling the stuff. I've written a book which you may be aware of, and I'd like to just quote a couple of things from that book because it's very relevant to these hearings. Firstly, truth. All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident. In other words, people say, well, of course we knew that. Now, that could be like, for instance, the Earth going around the sun. Well, if you go back to the 14th century, the church said, no, the sun goes around the Earth. A huge vested interest in maintaining the myth. So all truth passes through these 3 stages of it being ridiculed, opposed, and then accepted as being self-evident. Now, my experience when I'm trying to raise crucial issues, that I meet 2 kinds of people, and I write this in the book. There are those who seek the truth and those who run from it. There are 2 kinds of organizations in this world, those that embrace the truth and those that try to conceal it. So my point to this council is, I trust that this council will seek the truth and embrace it rather than running from it and trying to conceal it. I think the items which I have listed in my submission are actually self-evident. Fluoride is not part of any natural biological system. There is no mechanism for transfer of fluoride from the intestine to the bloodstream. So if you ingest fluoride, your body tries to get rid of it. It doesn't transport that fluoride from your intestine to your teeth. Any action of fluoride is purely in the mouth. This is an ion exchange mechanism, as I discussed last time I presented on this matter. So we then come to the question of why are we putting massive amounts of fluoride into water, most of it going down the drain, bath water, washing cars, watering gardens, you name it. 99% of this fluoride is going elsewhere, and it's going into people, and their bodies are trying to get rid of it. For a brief moment, a few seconds, while the fluoride is in the mouth, it may actually do an ion exchange. However, we must point out that fluoride in the teeth is not a natural phenomenon at all. Teeth are made of hydroxyapatite, which is calcium phosphate hydroxide, not the fluoride form. Now, there is some discussion and dispute about whether the fluoridated form is more resistant to decay. And that may possibly be the case, although a lot of the work that Professor Conant has done indicates that the advantage of having that fluoride is very, very tiny, of the order of like maybe 1 or 2 parts per 120 tooth surfaces. A very, very minimal effect, which has been grossly overstated by proponents of fluoride. Now, the point I would put to you is this fluoride which is going into our water is totally unregulated. There could be somebody who drinks very little water and gets very little fluoride. There could be somebody who is extremely athletic and drinks a lot of water. That person will be ingesting perhaps 10 times as much as the other person. There are people who use fluoridated toothpaste and there are people who don't. So the whole thing is completely unregulated. And I'd put this to you. As a council, you can either perhaps, if there's real concrete evidence that this is good, and I don't believe there is, but if there's concrete evidence that fluoridation does provide benefits, then we must ban fluoridated toothpaste. Because you can't have it both ways. Because if you need fluoride in the water, then you must not overdose by having fluoridated toothpaste. On the other hand, if fluoridated toothpaste does the job, you don't need fluoridated water. Now, I don't know how many minutes I've spoken. I think it's probably about 6 or 7. So
6:27 at the moment.
Okay. So I believe I've covered all the crucial points, and I think if anybody has any questions, I just point out I've got an honours degree in chemistry. I started studying this stuff in 1970. I think I know what I'm talking about, but if anybody's got some evidence that I'm wrong, I'd be very, very pleased to hear it.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Have you finished your submission?
That's my presentation, and if I'm
very
now,
happy
if
for
anybody's
any
got any questions.
Questions from councillors? Councillor Bisick.
Mr. Moore, you made the statement that fluoride is not a natural substance and found, but we heard...
No, I didn't say that at all. I said is not a component of living systems. Fluoride is all around the world. There are massive amounts of fluoride. There are deposits of calcium fluoride. It's called fluorspar. Yes. So fluoride is a relatively common substance. But nature has locked it up in forms which make it harmless. That's the whole point about calcium fluoride. It's insoluble. One other point I should make, since we do have a little bit more time, it doesn't really matter the outcome of this tribunal, because the whole industrial system is moving towards the collapse phase, and there won't be fluoridation in 10 years anyway. This is exactly as I pointed out to the council in 2007, and the crisis is getting worse and worse, and you can be absolutely certain that by 2015 the world globalized economy will have collapsed, and at some stage we won't be able to import phosphate in order to make fluoride.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Just in case I'm still here, can you please tell me, you said that calcium fluoride is insoluble, then how does it actually get into our natural, into our water then?
Well, it doesn't. Calcium fluoride doesn't. No, but there are other forms. For instance, toothpaste is a sodium salt. Sodium salts are much more soluble than calcium salts. So potassium and sodium salts are soluble. So if you look at a tube of toothpaste, it will say sodium monofluorophosphate. Yeah. So that's a soluble form which can interact with the enamel of the teeth. But calcium, no.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Any further questions? Mr. Moore, you've done amazingly well. You've finished at 9:07. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.